Wow, in a shocking turn of events, Japanese developers are actually listening to the gamers. And that's what we're seeing with Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater after a whole host of complaints came out from gamers at the overall look of some of the female characters in the game that was previewed a few months ago. And those complaints stood out, and we got a response from Konami itself where they've made a complete change with some of the characters that are supposed to be in this game. And I think that is a shocking thing for a lot of gamers, because when we hear complaints, the opposite happens with westernized game developers. They come out and call you a white supremacist, misogynistic, racist, homophobic incel that needs to shut up forever. That's the usual response from game developers, but that's the opposite of what we're getting from Konami and the Japanese game developers. They came out and said, no, we're actually going to listen to what you have to say, and we're going to produce something that you actually want to play. And that is the result that we're getting from Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, where the character Big Boss, which was seen from a preview clip looking rather homely and disheveled and not really the character that we actually know from the previous titles. Even though she did have the look, it just didn't remind us of that look of the character that we saw in the previous iterations. I'm not saying she was meant to be some sort of supermodel, but it was just kind of a letdown to the gamer base where they're expecting a more detailed look at the character. But when we saw the update and preview at the Tokyo Game Show for this character, we got a completely different look, and it seems like they updated her overall style and 3D rendering, and we get a completely different version that looks more in line with the character we all imagined her to look like. And I think that's the thing that players were hoping for, where we got this more serious boss-like, imposing, still yet attractive looking Big Boss character that seems to dominate the space around her, whether it's her intensity or overall attractiveness. And I think that's the thing that we're seeing with this version of the character of Boss. She's supposed to be a very dangerous, threatening character, but yes, this is video games. You can be dangerous and threatening, but you can still be attractive, and that's the situation we usually see with a lot of these Japanese games. And when we saw the first iteration, it was like, okay, yeah, it makes sense if we're going for an ultra realistic version of Metal Gear Solid. But when has Metal Gear Solid ever been ultra realistic? So that's the thing people were fighting over, saying, why do we need an ultra realistic boss when we have giant Gundam like robots in a world where people are shooting magic darts at people? So it's kind of an absurdity to have this realistic, detailed version of Big Boss when we're dealing with a fantastical world in some parts. And I think that's the situation people are responding to. People want to see the idealistic version of Big Boss, and they actually delivered Konami. And I think that's the thing that we've been seeing consistently from Japan when it comes to at least the looks of the characters, where they're not backing down from the looks of the characters that they're producing. Even when they mess up, they actually listen to the fans and go, man, we didn't even like this ourselves, we're going back to the original version that we liked. And I think this is Konami kind of pushing back from the Western influence that has been invading the space, where Western game designers, Western gaming companies, Western developers, and overall investment banks have been pushing for these more DEI oriented goals for the overall looks for video games, where they want to strip away the beautifying factors of the characters. They want to highlight body positivity, body sensitivity, overall sensitivity to trans individuals that can't have that ability to look more feminine. So rather than making characters feminine, you masculinize them to make them more on par with the identity of some of these minority groups. And that was the goal for a lot of games within the Western games development sphere, where it's not about making beautiful things anymore. It's about making things out of equity and representation. Gameplay and overall aesthetic appeal be damned over what the representation matters to the people that play the game, or maybe not even play the game, just put a thumbs up after seeing representation done in the game. And I think that's the majority of the audience a lot of Western game designers are pandering to. People that don't play games, where people will clap and pat them on the back saying, you did a good job with representation here, and not play the game that they produced and see that game go up in flames, much like Concord. And I think that's the reflection that we're seeing back here, where game players are applauding this game for actually making characters beautiful. And I think that's the thing we wanted to see from any games developer that is producing content or remastering content from years gone by, where you're taking that material, you're making it more beautiful, attractive, and appealing to the gamer. We don't want to see you take a classic game and make it horribly ugly, and you want us to play that game when the original game is more beautiful than the updated graphics version. And I think that's what we want to see from a remaster, and that's not what we're getting from remasters that are highly focused on the westernized audience. Even games games that are coming out from Japan that have their massive amount of censorship are ruining the gameplay experience once they come out with all these detailed graphics, but you don't have the essential quality of the game anymore because you're trying to be restrictive on what you do with that game. And I think that was the result that we're seeing with multiple remasters that are coming out, where they're trying to strip away the elements of the game that they feel like are not modern enough, when in actuality those are the elements people are there for. And I think that's the situation that we're seeing the opposite happen with Metal Gear Solid, where we're getting the character designs that we want to see, where we're getting the gameplay we want to see, and we're getting a total remaster that lives up to the title of remaster, where you're bringing things up to a higher quality. And I think that's the exciting part that we're all seeing in the game. And I think what we're overall developing over time with this game is something that people are going to be pleased with once we see it upon release. Of course, for me, I'm enjoying just wanting to play Snake Eater, the remaster. I know Konami is kind of flooded with this Western ideology kind of being imposed on them from these investment banks and ideological organizations and consultancy firms. But I'm excited to see what's coming out with this game, because this game seems like it's following the trend of making characters look how they're supposed to look, and I'm happy about that. But you tell me what you think about the situation. What do you think about Konami? Do you think it's gonna stand by its overall detailed looks of these characters? I think so. Big Boss has that stylish look that we were all hoping for. It seems like in the game she still has that drab look about her in certain parts, but it makes sense if she's out in the jungle and the field and everything like that. So I'm not hating that. I think this was already okay look on my standard, but to see the original style that we kind of imagined her to be, to have that design there, I'm like, okay, they really understand. And I think they put that out to make the gamers realize, okay, we have that one that's in the jungle, but we have the one that's out of the jungle that looks like the cool version of Big Boss that you remember. And I think that's the iteration we wanted to see. And I think they're putting this out there to allay any fears that, okay, we made her ugly for the modern day gaming environment, when that probably wasn't the case. But I think they were just trying to fit her into the environment, much like Snake in the jungle environment. So I think it makes sense. But them showing this is trying to placate any fears that, oh, they're listening to the Western modernized audience. And I think that's a win in and of itself, where you have Japanese developers going, okay, we got to show the gamers that we're not following the Western trend. And I think that's a big win for gamers themselves, where companies are aware that we can't follow the Western trend. It's completely disapproved from the gamer audience, and we have to show the gamers that we're actually pushing out content that's in line with their aesthetic appeal. And I think that's why they're putting this content out there, and they're focusing on these characters, especially Eva right here. They showcased her specifically to show that they made her even prettier in this remaster and design. And I think that's the thing a lot of players were hoping to see, something like this, where it doesn't make the character look uglier, because I think the old version looks way worse than the newer version. And this is what you want to see in a remaster, an updated, upscaled, and beautified version of the game. And I think that's what we're seeing with Kojima and his independent projects like Death Stranding, where we're getting a one-to-one character model design in 3D render that is equal to the actual actor that is playing the designs. This is the opposite of what we've been getting all throughout the video gaming industry, where the character model has no identical look to the 3D render that is put out there. And you see this with games like Star Trek Outlaws, Spider-Man 2 with Mary Jane, Horizon Forbidden West with Aloy. Everything is designed to look the opposite of the actor that's playing the role, and it's made to actually fit in line with the westernized ideals that are taking over the gaming industry, that are trying to push this progressive body positivity and this uglified look that is trying to bring the standard of beauty down to match what they perceive should be viewed as beauty. And I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of the Western game designs, and to see pushback within the Japanese game development sphere is always a positive sign if you are a gamer. And that's my thoughts on the situation. Tell me what you think about the situation. What do you think about Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater? I think it looks like an amazing remaster. I'm excited to see what they do with the game. It looks like a game that is trying to actually fit the standards of a remaster, making things look crazy, beautiful, sweet, and actively appealing to play. But those are just my thoughts on the situation. Tell me what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.